this big thing about health, which usually people would completely be ticked off and disconnect themselves from well-being, makes me connect even more with well-being. But then small things can tick me off and disconnect me, and I don't understand. I can be on my bicycle listening to you, feeling the sun, feeling the wind, smelling the ocean, being completely happy with my body, how it carries me through this world. But then the next day I have to go and fly, and I'm afraid sometimes because of snowstorms that I would miss my flight, that I would come late for work, which has happened while I was very sick 2 years ago. And now it doesn't happen anymore, but still, sometimes when and you've been talking about now, and then I connect back to the vortex. I am being happy, I am well. But then 2 minutes later, I'm out again. And I could spend the whole night sometimes. So could you help me aligning me with that? Because I'm very grateful of my job. I love my job. But then the company, whatever that is, sometimes makes me feel unfree, bonded. Like I want to be in the plane. I want to spread well-being. I do. My colleagues look at me like, how can you be like this after 25 years of flying? How can you be so happy and not be ornery? I laughed a lot about your story, your experience. I think it was Peggy on your flight. I laughed my head off because I'm a little bit like that with my passengers. And still the same happy job sometimes makes me completely unhappy, and I don't understand what's happening there, Abraham.
Well, let's go back to the subject of focus, which is annoying because focus requires attention. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the subject of focus, and let's start with the feeling of the grid, and then let's just talk generally about what your overall feeling is. Now, we know you've given us a lot of specifics here.
Yes, excuse me.
And everyone could feel, all is very helpful, and everyone can feel that you have a very solid, very good feeling grid going on about many things in your life. But now, let's talk about the specifics of your flying career, and feel it, and just explain to us in emotional terms what that overall job experience feels like, just generally.
Overall, makes me feel grateful, blessed, rich, abundant.
All right. So we would say that is part of the general grid that you've got going on about life. We would say that the general grid that you've got going on about life, about recovery, about vitality, about your appreciation for life, that is carrying you. But now, when you go to work, you have a more specific thing that you're focused on. In other words, when you're riding your bicycle near the ocean, what you're observing then is conducive to rendezvousing with that general grid of well-being. Stay with us. This is really good. But when you go to work, or when you're even thinking about going to work, that response to that behavior and that life experience is activating another grid or another part of that grid. It's bringing into the forefront something else. So when you're thinking about your work, while we know there's appreciation that underlines everything in your life, we can feel it emphatically. What more specifically comes forward, grid-wise, relative to your work?
Fear.
Now, that's strong, and it's good that you acknowledge that. And can you describe just a little bit the why of that? Really brief.
The complications of what is when I do not make my flight for reasons that I can't do anything about.
So it's fear about not keeping my responsibility.
Yes.
So now there's another feeling of responsibility that's part of the grid. Let's talk about the emotion around responsibility. What is that? don't want to let anybody down, want to be appropriate, want to be worthy, want to live up to what's expected of me. So around that fear of disapproval,
Yes.
You're not afraid of getting fired.
No.
So it's just fear of letting someone down, or fear about not doing what is there
Fear
more?
of like, because when we do get late, they will put you on standby, and I am commuting from Amsterdam to Frankfurt, and my work is in Frankfurt. But if I would get late for my flight, they might put me on standby, and then I have to find a hotel, and the hotel might be too expensive for me to pay that. And then
All right, so it's fear, but hear this, you're going to like this. It's fear of discomfort.
Yes.
It's fear of an out of control grid.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
It's fear of this happening to which I will respond, and this happening to which I will respond, and this will happen. So what you're really afraid of is not, your fear is about not really feeling stable in your grid building yet.
True.
Because almost everybody is sort of responding. You know, now this is going to answer the question that you asked specifically. When something really dramatic happens, like that life-threatening disease, and your desire was so powerful, because the desire was so strong, the path of least resistance led you to the solution of that. Yes. So what you're worried about is, do I really have to parlay things to that height of trauma before I really figure it out? And the answer to that, of course, is no. It's just a matter.
But I do it, and I know I'm doing it. And I'm stepping out of it
but feel
for 1 minute, and then I go back.
Feel how much less you're going to do it now. Just this conversation, because the grid that you had going on, and this is really an interesting and rather remarkable awareness. The grid that I have going on, we're speaking for you, the grid I have going on was really worry about creating a grid that was going to fill in with more unwanted stuff, to which I was going to create another grid that was going to fill in with more unwanted stuff. You see what's happened? When you start feeling as good as you feel so much of the time, your wariness is about not always being able to stay there.
Right.
And when you discover that no matter what you can return there, then you're really free.
Yes.
No matter what, you can return there, and then you're really free. And so you're sort of feeling silly about something so insignificant be off-putting, but it's not insignificant. Nothing is more significant than an understanding of how to maintain your good feeling. In other terms, we've been talking about, so life happens and you respond to it. Something happens, you have a response to it, which causes you to emanate the vibration more, which attracts more, which you have a response to, which causes you to attract more, which you have a response to. But it's easier to explain with this grid than ever before, isn't it?
Yes.
That it doesn't matter what has been happening or how I have been feeling. You can shore up the specifics of your work grid by reminding yourself about the really well-being of your general grid. But it is even more satisfying to take that work grid by the horns, so to speak, and just work it into a place that really feels good to you. So, let's do that. So relative to work, I like the feeling of ease and flow. I love the timeliness of the flights. I love the efficiency of all of that. In fact, one of the things that the efficiency of the flight, there are a lot of moving parts in that airline industry, and most of them are functioning very well. The gates, these big planes moving, the numbers of people that move in and out, it's really an efficient thing. And I like to dovetail as best I can with the efficiency of all of that. And when I get now we're filling your grid in with something more, and we know that you know this, we know that you feel this because we're getting this from you, but we're going to verbalize it here. The insecurity that you feel is not about what's happening in that big nest of airline security. In other words, they've got that all worked out. They know where they're going. They know when they're going. You can dovetail with that pretty well. And for the most part, it works the way they plan it to be. Where you begin to feel uncomfortable is in the parts that are outside of that. It's you getting to there that's got you all freaked out. It's you not dovetailing with them. It's you not being able to control what happens between where you're sleeping and where you're flying from that is bothering you. But this is all part of this grid that you have more control over than you've ever given yourself credit. And your discomfort about that is causing a vibrational environment that is actually giving you more hindrance and causing you more delays and causing you to have more of those experiences that you are feeling more fear about. So the remedy to that is by recalling how well it usually goes, by acknowledging that it is rare that something ever goes wrong. I must have a pretty stable grid going on because it's really rare when something is going on. And I love the feeling of alignment and ease. I love the feeling. I love the knowledge that out here on this leading edge, I'm rendezvousing because of my ease with so much intelligence that as the grid fills in, I feel the flexibility of making the right decision at the right time. As Esther watches the team that has been flying with her and meeting her and meeting Esther and Jerry through all of these years, they have so many wonderful stories of how this flight was closed, but this one opened, and this looked like it wasn't going to work, but then this worked. And there's a sort of excitement and an exhilaration about how, and not one of them has ever not been here in all of these years. Not one of them, all of these people rendezvousing, not one of them has ever not been able to find a way, and in most cases with relative ease. And as you shore up your grid in that way, it always goes well for me. I always figure it out. I'm always molding it into place. The universe is always cooperating with me. My grid is the cooperation point from which all things come. I can make it as easy or as hard as I want it to be. I can fuss and still make it work. I always make it work, but the question is, why do I have to make it work so hard? Why can't I make it work with more ease? Now that's the question worth asking. That's the question that goes right back to the basic grid that almost everyone has going on. Why do I feel that I need to pay some sort of price for the well-being that's coming? Oh, do you feel that stuck in your craw? I'm a little too happy on these flights for most of these attendants. My life's going a little too well.
Yes.
I need to create a little angst and a little struggle. Otherwise, I just might leave my body altogether. I just might lift right up out of here. I might get feeling so good I might fly away with the angels.
Yes.
So there it is, isn't it? There it is. So how good are you willing to allow your life to be? That's the question of this forum. How good are you willing to allow your life to be? And when you think about it, you are a radiator of how you feel. When you get a grid going, oh, haven't you seen it? You've seen it many times. Oh, on an airplane, it's especially easy to see.
Yes.
Where if you've really got a good grid going, the power of your influence is mighty.
Amazing.
Everything around you
Yes.
is influenced by that.
Yes.
And of course you don't want to do it for that reason, because if you do it for that reason, then you start noticing where it isn't working. But, you're just so used to feeling good mostly that when you don't, you just freak out.
Yes.
And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because we want you to be aware of the way you feel. But just be easier about it, and more basic about it, and more emotional about it, and more grid-like about it. And say to yourself often, time for a new grid, time for a new grid, time for a new grid. Because you see, you can stack those grids and they just pile up and mesh together. In other words, you could have a grid that has all kinds of things that have not been working well for you, and right now work on a grid that feels better, and that grid will dominate, and all of that will just fade into the background. And everything in your life will be about what you've going on right now.
But that's maybe why I'm worried sometimes, because I know in 25 years of flying, there have been quite some scenarios in which things did not work out.
Of course. But wait. Yeah. Say to yourself, this story is causing me to work on a different grid than I want to be my current reality. Mm-hmm. My memory is not serving me so well right now.
Mm-hmm.
You hear people say, if my memory serves me, and we say, it only serves you when you feel good, when you remember.